Right now, while you're watching this, your kidneys are already working. Not tomorrow, not after your next meal, right now. And in about 8 hours, when you're asleep and completely unaware of it, they're going to do the single hardest shift of their entire day. Nobody thinks about the 2 fist-sized organs quietly filtering their entire blood supply. Well, here's what nobody tells you. Every kidney conversation you've ever heard focuses on subtraction. Eat less sodium, watch your potassium, cut back on phosphorus. All true, all important, and all completely one-sided. Because there's a second half of this story that almost never gets airtime. What you can add to your evening plate that actively helps your kidneys instead of just avoiding harm. Tonight, I want to walk you through 8 fruits that do exactly that. Fruits that are widely recognized as kidney-conscious choices, that carry real antioxidant and anti-inflammatory value, and that happen to line up almost perfectly with what your body needs in the hours before sleep. And stick around for the 8th one, because it's the fruit everyone assumes is automatically good for your kidneys, and the truth is more complicated than that. I'll walk you through exactly what to know before you add it to your routine. Before we get into the list, let's spend just a couple of minutes understanding what's actually happening inside your body every night. Because once you understand the mechanism, the reasoning behind every fruit on this list is going to click into place. Your kidneys sit low on either side of your spine, roughly where your ribs end, each one about the size of a clenched fist. Despite their modest size, together they process an extraordinary volume of blood every single day, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 gallons, pulling out waste products, balancing your fluid levels, and returning clean blood back into circulation. It's a non-stop filtration system, and unlike your lungs or your heart, you never feel it working. That's exactly why kidney health tends to sneak up on people. There's no ache, no shortness of breath, no obvious warning sign until function has already declined significantly. Now, here's the tension that defines almost every conversation about kidney nutrition. Potassium is essential. Your nerves, your muscles, your heartbeat, all of it depends on adequate potassium in your bloodstream. But when kidney function is compromised, the end body loses some of its ability to clear excess potassium, and levels can climb to dangerous territory. That single fact is why so many people with any degree of kidney concern become afraid of fruit altogether. And that fear, while understandable, often backfires. Because the same plant compounds that reduce inflammation, neutralize oxidative stress, and support long-term kidney function are frequently found in fruit. Cut out all fruit, and you don't just avoid risk. You also lose access to some of the most protective nutrition available to you. The solution isn't to avoid fruit. It's to be selective about which fruit and which serving sizes protect you without adding a potassium burden your kidneys can't easily handle. That's precisely what the 8 fruits in this list are built around. Every one of them delivers real nutritional value while staying on the lower end of the potassium scale, which is the detail that makes them appropriate for a much wider range of people, including those already managing some degree of kidney concern. Let's start with the fruit that's arguably the most interesting on this entire list, because its benefit isn't just about kidney chemistry. It's about what happens while you sleep. Tart cherries are unlike anything else you'll find in a produce aisle because they contain a naturally occurring form of melatonin, the same hormone your brain produces to regulate your sleep-wake cycle. That alone would make them worth mentioning. But there's a second layer here that connects directly back to kidney health, and it has to do with something called nocturnal dipping. Under normal circumstances, your blood pressure is supposed to drop while you sleep, giving your cardiovascular system, and by extension your kidneys, a period of lower pressure and reduced strain. When sleep is fragmented or poor quality, that natural nighttime dip often doesn't happen the way it should, and the result is hours of sustained pressure working against delicate filtering vessels inside the kidney. Over months and years, that kind of chronic overnight strain contributes meaningfully to kidney decline. This is where tart cherries earn their spot at the top of the list. Beyond the melatonin content, they carry a mix of compounds, including tryptophan and various plant polyphenols, that have been associated with improved sleep quality, reduced nighttime awakenings, and lower markers of inflammation. Better sleep supports the blood pressure pattern your kidneys are counting on, and lower inflammation slows the chronic processes that drive kidney disease forward in the first place. It's a 2-for-1 benefit that very few foods can genuinely claim. For your bedtime routine, aim for around half a cup to a full cup of tart cherries. Or if fresh isn't available, 4 to 8 ounces of unsweetened tart cherry juice, consumed 30 to 60 minutes before you turn in. One important distinction worth remembering: sour or tart varieties are the low potassium option here. Sweet cherries sit in a different potassium category entirely, so if you're being careful about intake, tart is the one you want. From tart cherries, we move naturally into a fruit that's become almost synonymous with the word antioxidant in modern nutrition science, and for good reason. Blueberries pack an enormous amount of nutritional value into a very small package. A modest half-cup serving delivers meaningful fiber, vitamin C, vitamin K, and a dense concentration of antioxidant compounds, all while staying comfortably low in potassium, sodium, and phosphorus. That combination is rare, and it's exactly why blueberries show up on nearly every kidney-friendly food list you'll ever encounter. What makes blueberries particularly valuable are their anthocyanins, the deep blue-purple pigments that also happen to be powerful anti-inflammatory compounds. These are structurally similar to the compounds found in Tart cherries, but they act through slightly different pathways, which means the two fruits complement rather than duplicate each other's benefits. There's a broader reason his matters beyond kidney chemistry alone. Cardiovascular disease and kidney disease travel together far more often than people realize, sharing overlapping inflammatory pathways that damage blood vessels in both the heart and the kidneys simultaneously. A food that supports one system while protecting the other without adding potassium burden is exactly the kind of efficient nutrition an aging body benefits from. A simple half cup of blueberries makes an ideal bedtime portion, whether fresh, frozen, or freeze-dried, since all three forms retain their antioxidant content reasonably well. Sitting right alongside blueberries in terms of kidney compatibility and arguably even sweeter is strawberries, a fruit that manages to feel indulgent while remaining one of the safest fruit choices available for people managing more advanced kidney concerns. Strawberries bring vitamin C, manganese, folate, and antioxidant compounds to the table, all wrapped in a fruit that clocks in at under 30 calories per half-cup serving. What really sets strawberries apart is their potassium content, which lands at roughly 130 milligrams per half cup, among the lowest of any fruit you'll find. That low number is significant because it means strawberries remain a reasonably safe option even for people managing more advanced kidney disease, including those on dialysis, where potassium limits tend to be far stricter. There's also a growing body of research connecting strawberry consumption to increased antioxidant capacity in the bloodstream, along with elevated levels of glutathione, one of the body's most important internal antioxidants. Since oxidative stress is one of the primary engines driving kidney disease progression, anything that meaningfully boosts your body's own antioxidant defenses deserves attention. And like tart cherries, strawberries carry small amounts of natural melatonin precursors, contributing a mild, supportive push toward a more relaxed evening state, even if the effect isn't nearly as pronounced as tart cherries on their own. Half a cup of fresh or frozen strawberries, rinsed and left whole just before eating, makes a satisfying evening snack on its own. Pair them with a small spoonful of plain, unsweetened yogurt if you want something a little more filling before bed. Now let's talk about a fruit so common it's practically invisible, which is exactly why most people underestimate what it's doing for them. The apple might be the most overlooked entry on this entire list, largely because it's so ordinary that nobody stops to think about its kidney value. But apples are genuinely rich in fiber and antioxidant compounds while staying low across the board in potassium, phosphorus, and sodium. And here's a detail LL that changes how most people eat their apples. The skin is where the majority of that antioxidant value actually lives. Peeling an apple before you eat it strips away a significant portion of the benefit you're going for. For anyone managing both kidney health and blood sugar, which is an extremely common combination as people move past 60, apples offer a particularly useful advantage. Their fiber content slows the absorption of natural sugars into the bloodstream, which helps prevent the kind of overnight blood sugar swings that can add extra strain to already compromised kidney function. There's also a lesser-known benefit tied to kidney stone prevention. Apples contain malic acid, a compound connected to citrate metabolism in the body, which tends to support a more alkaline urine environment, generally considered less favorable to the formation of the most common type of kidney stone. One medium apple, peel intact, eaten slowly as part of a wind-down routine is all you need. A light dusting of cinnamon on top isn't just for flavor either. Cinnamon has its own blood sugar stabilizing properties that pair naturally with the apple's fiber content. Next on the list is a fruit that genuinely surprises people. The first time they hear it belongs here because grapes don't usually get mentioned in the same breath as kidney-conscious eating. Grapes, particularly the red and purple varieties, sit comfortably in the low potassium category, grouped alongside apples, blueberries, pears, and strawberries as fruits that provide real nutritional value without the potassium load of options like bananas, oranges, or melon. What makes grapes particularly interesting is resveratrol, a polyphenol concentrated primarily in the skin of darker-colored grapes, working alongside flavonoids that are believed to support healthier blood vessel function and reduce clotting risk, both relevant benefits for anyone managing elevated cardiovascular risk alongside kidney concerns. There's also a wonderfully practical use case here for anyone managing fluid restrictions, which is common among people with more advanced kidney disease. Frozen grapes make an excellent substitute for a cold drink. They take longer to eat, feel refreshing and hydrating in the mouth, and deliver genuine antioxidant value, all without adding the fluid volume that a glass of water or juice would contribute toward a daily fluid limit. A small handful, roughly half a cup, of red or purple grapes makes a satisfying bedtime. Snack. If fluid restriction applies to you, freeze them ahead of time and eat them slowly for a cooling, satisfying evening treat. Moving on to a fruit that might be the quiet fiber champion of this entire list, even though it rarely gets credit for it. Raspberries pack an unusually high amount of fiber into a small serving, roughly 4 grams in just half a cup, nearly double what you'd find in most other fruits at the same portion size. That fiber content matters for kidney health in 2 distinct ways. First, when it feeds the beneficial bacteria living in your gut, which in turn produce compounds that help reduce inflammation throughout the body, including the chronic low-grade inflammation that drives kidney disease forward year after year. Emerging research on the gut-kidney connection increasingly points to a healthier microbiome as a meaningful factor in slower disease progression. Second, fiber slows down how quickly your body absorbs everything else you eat alongside it, including phosphorus from other foods on your plate. Since phosphorus management is one of the more difficult aspects of eating well with kidney concerns, a fiber-rich fruit eaten alongside your evening meal creates a gentle, natural buffering effect. Raspberries also fall solidly into the low potassium category recognized for kidney-conscious diets, sitting alongside blueberries, strawberries, and grapes. A half cup of fresh or frozen raspberries works beautifully as a standalone bedtime snack, and frozen versions are just as nutritionally complete as fresh, often at a fraction of the cost. Try mixing them with Tart cherries for a combination that stacks multiple benefits into a single bowl. Now here's a fruit that tends to catch people off guard because it feels tropical, acidic, and about as far from a delicate, kidney-friendly food as you can imagine. And yet pineapple earns its place on this list for good reason. Despite its bright, sharp flavor, pineapple is widely recognized as a low-potassium fruit option, making it one of the more accessible tropical choices for anyone managing potassium intake. What makes pineapple genuinely interesting from a kidney health standpoint is bromelain, a natural enzyme found in fresh pineapple with documented anti-inflammatory properties. Since chronic inflammation sits at the center of kidney disease progression, any naturally occurring anti-inflammatory compound that fits comfortably within a lower potassium eating pattern deserves real attention. There's a sleep angle here too. Fresh pineapple contains tryptophan, the same amino acid precursor to serotonin and melatonin found in tart, cherries, and strawberries, contributing to a gentler wind. Won't knock you out, but as part of a broader nighttime routine, it nudges your body in the right direction. One important detail worth remembering: freshness matters enormously here. Canned pineapple goes through heat processing that destroys the majority of its bromelain content, so if the anti-inflammatory benefit is what you're after, fresh pineapple is the only version that delivers it. Half a cup of fresh pineapple, cut into chunks or spears, makes a light and satisfying evening addition. And now, the fruit I asked you to stick around for, because unlike everything else on this list, it comes with a genuine catch that almost nobody explains properly. Cranberries have been linked to kidney and urinary tract health for decades, and there is real research behind that reputation. Compounds found in cranberries appear to help prevent certain bacteria from attaching to the walls of the bladder, which is the mechanism believed to explain their long-standing association with reduced recurrence of urinary tract infections in women who've had them before. That's a legitimate, evidence-supported benefit, and it's worth knowing about. But here's where most explanations stop short, and where the actual nuance matters. Cranberries do not treat an active infection. If you already suspect you have a urinary tract or kidney infection, cranberries are not the solution, and you need to see a doctor. Their value lies entirely in prevention, and even then, the supporting evidence is described as modest rather than definitive. The second, and honestly more important, catch has nothing to do with the fruit itself and everything to do with how it's typically sold. Raw cranberries are intensely tart, almost unpalatable on their own, which is why nearly every cranberry product on store shelves is loaded with added sugar to mock it drinkable or edible. Juice cocktails, sweetened dried cranberries, flavored supplements, most of them carry enough added sugar to work directly against the kidney benefits they're marketed around. Sugar-sweetened beverages are consistently linked to increased kidney disease risk, which means a cranberry juice cocktail sold under a health halo can quietly be doing more harm than good. If you want the real benefit, the version that matters is unsweetened. That means unsweetened 100% cranberry. Juice, unsweetened dried cranberries eaten in small portions, or raw and frozen whole cranberries. Skip the cocktails and the sweetened supplements entirely. And one more note worth flagging. There's some evidence suggesting cranberry may interact with certain blood-thinning medications. So if you're on a medication like warfarin, mention regular cranberry use to your pharmacist before making it a habit. So that's all 8. Now let's put them to work with something practical you can actually do tonight. Take a small bowl and combine half a cup of Tart cherries, a handful of blueberries, and 3 or 4 sliced strawberries. That single combination gives you natural melatonin support for sleep and nighttime blood pressure regulation, a dense mix of anthocyanins for anti-inflammatory protection, a solid dose of vitamin C, and enough fiber to support both your gut and your phosphorus balance, all while staying low enough in potassium to work for most people, regardless of what stage of kidney health they're managing. No supplements, and no prescriptions, no complicated preparation, just 3 well-researched fruits in a bowl, eaten 30 to 60 minutes before you go to sleep. If you want to round it out with something to drink, a small glass of unsweetened tart cherry juice alongside that bowl is about as close as you'll get to a genuinely research-backed bedtime kidney routine built entirely from whole foods. Now, an important note before you run off and build this bowl tonight: every fruit on this list is broadly recognized as a lower potassium, kidney-conscious choice. But broad guidance isn't the same as individual guidance. If you're managing more advanced kidney disease, particularly stage 4 or 5, your potassium and phosphorus limits may be tight enough that even these lower potassium fruits need to be tracked carefully, within a specific daily allowance. Your care team, and ideally a renal dietitian, is the right resource for translating this general information into a plan that fits your exact numbers. In earlier stages of kidney disease, potassium restriction usually isn't necessary at all unless blood work shows elevated level S. It's really only in the later stages, or with kidney failure, that stricter limits tend to come into play. If it's been a while since you've had blood work done and you're over 60, this is worth bringing up at your next appointment. A basic metabolic panel gives you creatinine, estimated glomerular filtration rate, and your electrolyte levels, including potassium, 4 numbers that together paint a clear picture of exactly where your kidneys stand today. You genuinely can't make informed decisions about any of this without knowing those baseline numbers first. Let me tell you about a patient I worked with, a woman in her early 70s managing early-stage chronic kidney disease alongside poor sleep and recurring urinary tract infections. When we reviewed her eating habits together, she had quietly eliminated almost all fruit from her diet, driven by a completely understandable but overly broad fear that fruit automatically meant dangerous potassium levels. In doing so, she had also cut out one of the most protective categories of food available to her: the antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, and sleep-supportive nutrients that fruit uniquely provides. We rebuilt her evening routine together, guided by exactly the kind of lower potassium fruit choices you just heard about. Tart cherries before bed to support sleep and overnight blood pressure, blueberries and strawberries layered in for antioxidant coverage, unsweetened whole cranberries a few times a week to support UTI prevention. Within about 6 weeks, her sleep had noticeably improved. Her recurring infections, which had been showing up almost monthly, hadn't returned in over 2 months, and at her next kidney function check, her numbers had held steady, which at her stage was exactly the realistic, meaningful outcome we were hoping for. What struck her most, she told me afterward, wasn't the lab numbers, it was how the routine felt. Instead of experiencing her diet as one long list of restrictions, she was adding something to her evening that felt genuinely good, something she looked forward to, instead of something she had to force herself to comply with. That shift, from restriction to addition, made the entire change far easier to stick with than any purely limiting diet she'd tried in the past. Before you go build your own version of this tonight, one honest disclaimer worth sitting with for a second. Everything you just heard is educational information drawn from established nutritional guidance and published research. It is not personalized medical advice, and it isn't a substitute for the individualized plan your own renal dietitian or physician has given you. If you're managing advanced chronic kidney disease, currently on dialysis, taking blood-thinning medication, or working under specific dietary restrictions from your care team, always run any new food addition past them first before making it a regular part of your routine. Here's your simple action plan for tonight and the days ahead. Start with tart cherries, somewhere between half a cup and a full cup of the sour or tart variety, or unsweetened tart cherry juice, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Add blueberries, roughly half a cup, fresh or frozen. Bring in strawberries, another half cup, remembering that their exceptionally low potassium content makes them one of the safest options across nearly every stage of kidney health. Include an apple, one medium, skin on, for the fiber and blood sugar support. Add grapes, a small handful of the red or purple variety, frozen if you're managing fluid restrictions. Work in raspberries, half a cup, for the highest fiber content on the entire list. Bring in pineapple, half a cup of fresh only, never canned, to preserve the bromelain benefit. And finally, cranberries, unsweetened only, whether juice, dried, or whole, checking with your pharmacist first if you're on blood-thinning medication. You don't need to add all 8 at once. Start tonight with just the first 3, tart cherries, blueberries, and strawberries, and build your bedtime bowl from there. Introduce the remaining fruits one at a time over the following week or two, giving yourself the chance to notice how your body responds to each one individually. If you're planning to build that bedtime bowl tonight, drop a comment and let me know which 3 fruits you're starting with. I genuinely read everyone. And if this kind of clearly explained, research-grounded approach to kidney and healthy aging is something you want more of, subscribe, because there's a new video like this every week, breaking down exactly what the evidence says about protecting your health as you get older. Next time, we're covering 5 everyday drinks that may be quietly raising creatinine levels, including one that's marketed as a health drink and rarely gets questioned. I'll see you there.